Let's play a little Fact or Fiction next on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into FPT in 5. As always, make sure to follow and stream us on Spotify. Today is Thursday, January 13th. I am Frank Stanfield, joined by Scott White. And how this is going to work, I'll present a stat. And Scott, you tell me fact or fiction, and then we could talk about that player a little bit. Joey Gallo joined the Yankees on July 30th last season. From that point forward, his 160 batting average was the lowest among qualified hitters.
Yeah, I'm going to say that's a fact. It was an awful stretch for him.
That was a fact indeed. It was the lowest by far. Carlos Santana was next with a 175 batting average. Joey Gallo had a 38.6% strikeout rate during the span. The ADP for Gallo is the lowest we've ever seen, Scott, 183.3 since December 1st. Are you interested at that price point?
So I think there were too many headlines associated with that Joey Gallo stint with the Yankees, because it was with the Yankees, of course. But what do we always say about Joey Gallo? He's a high variance player, strikeout or home run, and or walk, I guess. A true three true outcomes player. And you get that kind of player, he can have stretches of 2 months when he just disappears at the plate. That's not at all uncommon. That it coincided with his stint with the Yankees is unfortunate, but I don't think going to the Yankees broke him or anything. He was having a typical Joey Gallo season before then. And I think that's, for a guy who's going to hit between 35, 40 home runs, that's a fine value.
Next up, we have Aaron Civale averaged more fantasy points per game than Lucas Giolito last season. Fact or fiction?
I'm going to say fact. Because Lucas Giolito's point per game production, I remember being pretty underwhelming.
It was a fact. 14.9 points per game for Aaron Civale, 14.3 for Lucas Giolito. Scott, I think some people keep waiting for Giolito to take this next step. It reminds me a lot of Jose Barrios. The strikeouts are much better for Giolito, so I will point that out. Let's say that you wait for your first starting pitcher. Would you be okay with Giolito as your SP1?
So I've looked it up since the full-length podcast. I actually do have Giolito as my 12th ranked pitcher, technically an SP1 in that case, but I'm kind of beyond the point of waiting for him to be like a true ace. I thought it was going to happen last year, coming off a season when his swinging strike rate he was really the only guy who compared to DeGrom in 2020. And he had another typical Giolito season. Has never gone 180 innings. His ERA is always around 3.5. Fine pitcher, somebody I won in kind of a vague sense, in a vacuum. I like him, but I'm not treating him like I was the previous 2 years, because he seems settled into who he is.
Yeah, and who he is fine. I think we shouldn't expect more at this point. 3 straight years, the ERA 3.41, 3.48, 3.53. Pretty consistent for Lucas Giolito. Next up, Adolis Garcia finished 53rd overall in 5x5 roto value last season, which was higher than Randy Arozarena. Fact or fiction?
So I feel like Arozarena's performance has been overrated and Adolis Garcia's has been underrated because it was so front loaded. I know Garcia had more home runs. I know Arozarena had more steals, but not by as many as people think. So I'm going to say Garcia, he was higher. I don't remember whether that's fact or fiction, but he was higher than Arozarena.
All right, so yes, you are saying that is a fact, that he was higher than Randy Arozarena. It was fiction. Randy Arozarena did finish just ahead. He was the 50th overall player. I mentioned Adolis Garcia, 53rd. Scott, how do you feel about Adolis Garcia? I mean, the final 4 months from June 1st on, 225 batting average, 674 OPS, lots of strikeouts, more ground balls than you'd like to see out of a slugging type outfielder. But the ADP is pretty low. I mean, we're getting him, around 167. Seems like maybe people have gone too far.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that's the case. He's being faded really hard, and I don't have a lot of faith in the skill set either. I don't like those horrible plate discipline guys, but I think there's a coin flip's chance he's basically who he was last year, in which case you're talking potentially another 30 homers, 15 steals, if not more. And I think at that price, I'm willing to take that coin flip's chance. Other side of the coin is he falls flat on his face and maybe never has a full-time job in the majors again. But I don't think the cost is prohibitive.
Yeah, it's easier to recover at that point in the draft. The last one here, I want to ask you fact or fiction, Scott. I'll just tell you, Giancarlo Stanton hit 35 home runs last year. 43 players hit 30-plus home runs, and his 64 runs scored were tied for second fewest. So how do you feel about Giancarlo Stanton and the fact that, I don't know, maybe it was fluky, his runs were down as much as they were?
Yeah, I feel like the runs were down up and down the Yankees lineup, even though the OBPs were good. Giancarlo Stanton's was over 350. Very surprising to see how little fantasy points he scored for what was this big bounce back season. But it's still, is he going to stay healthy for 139 games again or whatever it was? And I would take the under if that's the case. But yeah, I do think the runs scored specifically, that was a fluky thing that the whole Yankees lineup should see improvement in.
For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast. This most recent episode was a doozy with our friends Nando DeFino and Adam Azer. You can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, your smart speakers, or anywhere else podcasts are found. And thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. We'll be back again on Monday morning. Bye-bye.